Hello, and welcome to the Mindset Bloomcast with Mallory. I am your host, Mallory McGary. I am the founder and CEO of Beautifully Blooming. You can find me at beautifullyblooming.com or emailing questions or anything to Mallory at beautifullyblooming.com or find me on Instagram under Mallory McGary. You are listening to the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio and TV and podcast, the #1 internet talk network. Welcome. I am so excited to have you guys here. For all of you listening live and all of you listening to replays or different versions of this, welcome. Today we have a very special guest, a really good friend of mine who I have known for quite some time. And he's going to jump on here in just a minute. We're having a little bit of a technical glitch, but he will be here. But I'm going to tee him up a little bit and then kind of get talking about the topic. And then when he jumps on, we can join in together in this conversation. But Greg is a super good friend of mine. I've known him for years. We have kind of gone through the coaching programs of life together without really knowing we were doing it together, and connected on this coaching platform versus through a completely different mentor that we both used. And then we've come together on this coaching program of life, and then have been working together and collaborating on a few things behind the scenes. But I'm really glad to have him here. He is kind of what I consider a little bit of the other half of what I do. I focus on moms and I focus on women, and he focuses on dads and men. He loves being a dad. He considers himself a professional dad. He is a coach to many of his sports teams and a lot of the youth programs around our area where we live. And he's an all-around awesome guy. He's done triathlons. He's into Ironman. So he's a very well-rounded guy, and he focuses a lot on focusing on health and wellness being part of your journey. There he is. This is my friend Greg, everyone. Welcome.
How's it going?
Welcome. We're so
Thank
glad
you.
to have you here, and I'm grateful that you took the time to be a part of this show with us. So, Greg, our last episode, I kind of teed off a little bit into how compliments, from taking and receiving compliments, accepting and giving, I guess is probably the best way to put it, is, and how it works from a women's perspective and a mom's perspective. So tell me about how giving and receiving compliments from a man's perspective, how that affects you. Does it affect your self-confidence? What that does for you?
Wow. Yeah. And I listened to your show last week, and phenomenal, 2 weeks ago, and it was very similar to what it is, right? So kind of, if we go back, there's a playlist in our head, and as we take in a compliment, we check it against that playlist, and depending on what is playing at that time, we may just say, nope, that's not me, right? Like, I appreciate what you just said about me, but that's really not me. And I know I've got myself saying that, I don't know, hundreds. If I followed your the advice of $20 a time that I deflected or gave a caveat to a compliment, I would not. I'd be broke, bankrupt probably at this point in time.
I was gonna say, did you take that challenge of just starting to find yourself every time you gave a caveat?
No, I did not, because I'd be broke. So what I did do is I chose to just begin to accept that. And that was actually something consciously that I had to do a while ago, is come at it from a place of gratitude. And that's why I was thinking, like, the grateful gentleman is someone who can, regardless of the playlist in your head, accept and receive compliments because they're authentic. Because regardless of where you are, this is something, a place of gratitude means you're going to be able to accept it and say, okay, they see me. I don't see that myself, but they see it in me. And maybe that's something that I can work on. Maybe that's something that I want to be able to say that about myself. Either way, I'm going to express gratitude and appreciation so that they know I really do appreciate them seeing me and valuing me in some shape, form, or fashion. Now, You want to know from a guy's perspective. That isn't the easiest statement
Yeah.
to make, and that is definitely not something that a guy, if you will,
Mhm.
growing up, that wasn't anything. I mean, I grew up in a wonderful place where my mom gave compliments as if they were freebies, right? Like she passed them out left, right, and everywhere, and focused on building us up.
Okay.
So much so sometimes though that it felt inauthentic, right? Because
Mhm.
you're like, but I'm not the best at that. You just said I was the very best. I know for a fact I'm not. So I do think you have to, especially with guys, but I don't know that it's too different. Like I really don't
No,
think that
it's
it is.
I
So
don't
gut
think
check
it's
me,
too different. Okay.
right? You have to meter the compliment based on the reality of that person as well. So to say
Right.
someone's the very best at something, like if they're a small child, you're just trying to build them up, that's one thing. They don't know any different. But as they
Yeah.
grow into that space, being authentic and real and saying, you're really good at this. How good you want to become. Like I see the potential you
Mhm.
have and allowing them to step into what you want them to be or what you see them potentially being, I think is even more important than almost sugarcoating or the term that's being used a lot these days is gaslighting, right? It's not always
Yes.
meant to gaslight, but you can unintentionally gaslight someone in your compliment giving. So I do think that there's some give and take and a balance in finding
Mhm.
authentic, wonderful compliments, so that somebody actually says, you know what, you're right. I am pretty good at that. Not the best at it yet. And you can agree with them, but you
Right.
are really good at it. And I think that's how we start to help each other is both in the giving and in the receiving is
Mhm.
being authentic and real about it.
I love that. And I think you're spot on in that it's kind of the same for man versus woman in the same way of being able to say, you I think sometimes we all just kind of get by on you're the best. I know I'm guilty of this. I say it all the time. Like, thank you so much, you're the best. And not meaning it as like a terrible thing, just kind of as a like an aside of you really helped me out, thank you, rather than using an actual compliment and saying, thank you so much for delivering on A, B, and C. It really helped me out instead of focusing on that type of a thing. So I think you're right in that. So gut match check me here because I'm also interested on this side of the perspective.
Yeah.
I feel that it's easier for women to just give compliments. That it's kind of we like to say, I like your shoes, I like your outfit, I like your hair, I those type of things. We like to make sure that we acknowledge what we see and what we like about somebody. How do you feel from a guy's perspective? What do you think on that?
I think it depends on the guy. Honestly, I think it
Okay.
depends on the individual, how they were brought up, a variety of
Mhm.
things. It is less likely, though, that a guy is going to compliment another guy on their outfit for the day. Um, if anything, what ends up happening is they'll do it in jest, right? Like it
Right.
becomes this, oh, hey, you're dressed up. Why are you dressed up today? I mean, you look super sharp, but like, why would you do that? Really, we almost we want to give the compliment, but it's like this deflection of like, I don't really know how you're going to take this of me
Okay.
commenting on your outfit or me recognizing that like you look sharp, like you're a
Mhm.
well-dressed individual or, um, or even how will a female, I noticed that you had a
Yeah.
haircut and that you colored your hair.
Mhm.
Will you accept the fact that and not think that it's anything other than literally a compliment? So
Yeah.
a lot of times I think I know I have, so I'll just speak from my own experience. Like I have approached that with more of a question, like, man, you like sharp suit, like anything
Mhm.
going on today, and just more of a dialogue and a conversation than focus on the compliment. Or and from a female giving to a female, like, hey, did you happen to color your hair? Your hair looks a little different. And just
Right.
asking is to lead into something and make it a little softer. But from a guy, yeah, it isn't that we don't notice, we just don't necessarily know the right way to do it without coming at it from a
That's
joke
fair.
perspective. Most of us grew
That's
up
fair.
in razzing each other than complimenting each other. So,
Mhm. I like that. And it's probably the same of just kind of like, I don't know how you're going to take this. So maybe if I start a conversation piece, then I can actually insert what I really want to say. And
mhm,
then it's not take it's not taken out of context necessarily in that.
Yeah,
So I think that's fair.
I
So
think
I
so.
also think that your title is awesome. Gratitude. Gratitude is one I haven't yet touched on, but
Mhm.
something that I strongly believe in, that, like you talked about, having a grateful heart and coming at a place from gratitude makes it easier to receive things
Mhm.
in um, whatever it is that you're trying to receive, manifest into the world. So tell me about what being a grateful gentleman is to you. Talk to me about why you chose this topic.
I think it's so a well, man. So such a good question because it maybe just reflect back to the power of gratitude, and especially in the last year that it's had for me.
Hmm.
I had always somewhat not scoffed, but never really partaken in the 21 days of gratitude for November or the
Right.
gratitude journaling. Or I always said thank you. I do appreciate people, and
Hmm.
I think you and I have worked together, and you've
Yep.
seen that I really do feel if somebody deserves recognition and appreciation, even if they don't deserve everything, like I'm going to go and appreciate that
Sure.
individual. But I never really looked at it internally. And when I did, which is a little about a year ago or so,
Hmm.
in helping me work through some dark places and reconnecting with my wife and reconnecting with my faith and reconnecting with a number of things, it came down
Hmm.
to getting back to basics of what is good in my life right now and what am I
Hmm.
and what does that mean? And learning how to identify that, learning how to write a gratitude statement and affirmation, and then using that also in receiving things that people were saying about me, stopping with the deflection and being a
Hmm.
courteous individual to say thank you and absorbing it and actually allowing their positivity to sit on my heart,
Hmm.
um, and recognizing it for what it was. They were breathing life into me, and I'm grateful for that. So yeah, we can be a gentleman and a lady in any which way possible.
Hmm.
If you, though, look at your engagements in life, the ones that truly kind of define that usually come in those moments of gratitude where you are sincerely grateful for an individual, for an event, for a circumstance, even for a difficult situation. Once you can get to that
Hmm.
point, those are the significant moments that allow us to step into something usually bigger and bolder, and allow us to bring other people into the journey.
Right. I love that. And bringing people into the journey. Um, I want to touch on a couple of things that you
Sure.
mentioned. Let's talk about our relationship with your spouse, your
Yeah.
significant other. I've met your wife. She's such a sweetheart that she is just like a gem of a person. But how do you think that going through this journey of finding a way to be grateful, how do you think that has changed your relationship with your wife?
Um, we so I'm grateful for her and her patience with me, right? I'm stepping into and I do not say that in the like a
Hmm.
phrase that I'm starting to become like really like I don't know that I like that phrase at all is the happy wife happy life phrase, like it because it comes across so trite and
It
snarky and
does.
right, so
But
that's a whole
partly
nother
it's like
episode.
the truth is very minuscule and granular in that statement. But I can agree in the fact that it's kind of an overused statement and the meaning
Mhm.
of it has been lost. So
Very
continue
much
on.
so. So I was saying, that's a whole nother episode, right?
Yes, it
So
is.
in in the end, um, the reason that I'm able to step into this new space and help other dads connect with their kids, before it's too late, the
Hmm.
reason I'm able to take on this new adventure is because my wife is willing to make it an hour adventure, an hour journey. And
Okay.
because she asked me to work with her with details and to bring her along into conversation, it was
Hmm.
because she showed grace and patience and understanding, um, that we were able to get to the point of okay, this is the time. um, in that, prior to a year ago or so, where gratitude wasn't the thing, it wasn't that I was never grateful for my wife, but we weren't talking in the same language, and I definitely wasn't in
Hmm.
a place where I was opening up to her
Okay.
to be able to proactively be gratitude for the fact that I have something on my heart and
Mhm.
I'm going to share that with her, and be grateful that she'll receive it and we'll have a really good dialogue, or that
Mhm.
it'll take a minute to get to a good dialogue. So it's been a journey. We've been married 21 years. I can honestly say that in that 21 years, she has shown me more grace than I will ever be able to show her, with her
Mhm.
willingness to kind of say, all right, he'll come along. Right.
Right.
Um, and so in that, I guess all that to say, across that 21 years, ways that I've chosen to show gratitude and say thank you, I've
Mhm.
chosen to be a little more kinesthetic, if you will, in that.
Okay.
So doing dishes after just about every dinner. Like my kids watch that I will physically. It's the funniest thing, and it scares her half to death half the time, especially on Sundays. But almost,
Right.
most, I'd say most dinners, where I will clean the dishes or ask the kids to join. But if she starts to, like, she gets one warning and says, "Hey, don't touch the dishes." And if she continues, like, it's a playful, but I do go pick her up
Right.
and physically move her so that I can honestly express my gratitude and pull my weight where I can. Because if I
Mhm.
cooked, honestly, let's just be honest, if I cooked, that would, like, there'd be zero amount of gratitude anyone could give us that would allow the food to taste good, minus
Right.
smoked meat. Like smoked meats, I'm good. Outside
That's
of that,
fair. That's
not
fair.
so much. Um, so little things like that, random,
Mhm.
it's little acts of kindness, but those only go so far, right? Like,
Right.
intentional messaging is great, and good acts of kindness and gratitude are great. But the true gratitude and the true ability to express my gratitude has come when I've opened up to her and invited her into my
Mhm.
playlist and allowed for the conversation to happen. And that took me a long time, and the number of starts and stops before I could really
Right.
get there.
I love that. And I love that you talk about like physically moving her, because I think sometimes it does need to be intentional and like a physical motion. You can only say stop so many times before it's like, I'm trying to help you out here. And I did learn in a podcast that um, it was actually a Xander's podcast, Xander Fryer's
Oh
podcast.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
he was talking with his wife about how they kind of come together and they have these what they call meetings. This is like super paraphrasing. It was a while ago that I heard it, but
Sure. Yeah.
he expressed in there that instead of saying, "Oh, you've got to work on blah," or "I'm working on this," and like downloading all of the negatives, it was like he would take on that gratitude perspective of if she was going to take the trash cans out to the road, he kind of like playfully bump her over and be like, no, that's, I'm doing that to show you I'm grateful. Or he would go out of his way and say, I'm grateful for you doing blah. And I found myself in that space doing the same thing for my husband of saying, I'm really grateful you took the garbage cans out, or I'm really grateful that you're working so hard for our family, just appreciating his effort rather than him feeling like it was a constant, that he it was just a go and go and that it was just being unseen. So how has that
Mm.
changed Dana's perspective to you by doing the gratitude, taking that gratitude?
It's a good question for her. I wish she was here and could answer that question. I don't know. I can say that, I kind of flipping that script. The
Hmm.
other thing I've had to work on is when she steps into a place that I think I should be doing, and I play
Right.
that playlist in my head of, like, I should have done that. I should have,
Hmm.
trying to get to that place of gratitude and seeing that regardless of whether I should have and I was asked to and I didn't, or like, and she did, or um, it's something that I felt I should do, but I just never got around to it. And so she did because it needed to be done, and it wasn't an assignment for anybody. It wasn't anything. It just needed to be done. So she did it. I do think that, to your point, like, we need to not project that I should have and oh crap, and
Hmm.
get negative about it, and even express frustration. Again, you're projecting your own
Yeah.
frustration on your spouse when all they were doing was trying to help or insert themselves into a spot that, like, it just needed to be done, and that's
Yeah.
okay. And I think that happens at work. I think that happens with your friends. I think that happens in so many places of life where you get in your own way of the shoulds, and your own
Hmm.
playlist that you forget to be the gentleman, the lady of gratitude, and take that step back and say, maybe I should have, but thank you so much for helping out with that. And that's something that I'm still heavily working on. So that's what I can comment on, how it's affected Dana, and where it's at. I think it's been really really well received, and we've worked really well on it, and it's been a 21-year progress. But yeah, next time we'll have
progress
to have her
is progress.
comment. Yeah.
Next time I'll have her on there. Okay, we're going to take a short break really fast, but you are listening to the Mindset Bloomcast with Mallory. I'm your host, Mallory McGary, founder and CEO of Beautifully Blooming, with my lovely guest, Greg. You're on this side of my screen, so you're seeing my hands over here. He is here. What's your business, Greg? I don't even know.
Right. So, no, great question. So right now it's a private business, just me, Greg Larsen. So you can find me on Instagram at Greg Larsen, and we can talk some more on that in a second.
I love that. Okay, you are listening to the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, radio, TV, and podcast, the #1 internet talk network, and we will be right back. All right, welcome back. You are listening to the Mindset Bloomcast with Mallory. I am your host, Mallory McGary. I am the founder and CEO of Beautifully Blooming. You are listening to the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, radio, TV, and podcast, the #1 internet talk network. Welcome back. We are talking with my wonderful friend Greg Larsen about being a grateful gentleman. We've talked about how being grateful has helped with compliments, accepting and giving them, also with your relationship with your spouse. But I also know, Greg, that you are focused on helping dads connect with their kids in what you say is before it's too late.
Yep.
Tell me what that looks like.
Well, so before it's too late, a good friend of mine had shared wisdom that had been shared with him. He shared that with me, and he just gave me the countdown. He said, hey, look, it's 5, 10, 15 gone. That's what you have with your kids. 5, 10, 15 years, and then they're out. They're gone. They're doing their thing. And our oldest is 19, and he just moved home for the summer from college, his first year of college. And it's true. It's not that he doesn't want to be here. It's not that we don't have a relationship. It's just he is living his life, and even though he's home, like he's doing his thing, and we connect and we do whatnot. But so it's helping dads show up as their best self for themselves, right? And the whole program is based on who are you? Who do you want to become? Because most guys, and what I've seen in a lot of the coaching is, I'll help you be the alpha male. I'll help you be the nice guy. I'll help you kill the nice guy. I'll help you, right? Like, great. I don't want anything for you to become a specific any type of guy. Right. You become the best version of you, so that version of you is who your kids know, that you're sharing your dreams. They see you attacking goals. They see how you are approaching the goals you have in your life and the purpose you have in your life. They see whether or not you're fulfilled. They see whether or not you're honorary. Do you? And I mean, trust me, 20 plus years in corporate America, right? Like, come home from work and just don't talk about work because I'm not fulfilled, right? But those times that I do, there's lessons that I can share. Do you connect with your kids through their activities? Are you coaching sports? Just so much, but you have to know who you are and what you want to become, who you want to become, so that your kids know who you are, so that they know it's okay to become who they want to become, and that you see them for who they are, not for who you think they should be. Right. Okay. So don't project your false narrative and your I should have or I wish I would have. Well, then go do, so that you're not projecting. Right. Where we lack, we compensate. And a lot of times as parents, especially dads, we will overcompensate in overcoaching, in overdoing,
Mm-hmm.
and overburdening our kids to compensate and overcompensate for the lacks that we have in our life. Now, in that, there's a lot of good that we give through that, but in that overcompensation, we put a lot of burdens on our kids unintentionally. So instead of burdening our kids, let's show up for them and
Mm-hmm.
help them grow into who they want to become, because we're confident in ourselves, and we don't need our kids to become something so that we accomplish something, right? Like,
Right.
it's their life. So so that's what we do, and we work through everything from your mindset. We look at your life in several different areas.
Mm-hmm.
I'm certified with a coaching certification called Oola, and it's a full framework that we divide your life up into 7 areas, and we look at all those areas and grade it out and goal it out, and it's
That's
all
awesome.
based on purpose, right? Like,
Okay.
everything.
Right.
Why does this matter? Why does this goal matter? How does it tie to your bigger vision in life and to what you want to accomplish and where you want to be? Is where you are now where you want to be? If not, how do we leap that, and how do these goals help us leap that gap and make that happen? And so that's what that looks like. And it's all about you becoming the best version of you so that you can show up as your best self for your
I
kids and for your spouse.
That's awesome. I love that. And the program itself, the 7 different areas is I've done part of ULA, so the 7 different areas are very helpful. But now going into you have 4 kids.
Yes.
So oldest is 19 and baby is how old?
She's 10.
She's 10. So in the time frame of your journey to get to where you're at right now,
Hmm.
do you look at your relationship with your oldest versus your how I guess not relationship, but how you parent your oldest versus your youngest right now? I know they're in 2 different stages of life, but reflecting back to when they're the same comparable age, do you see a difference in how you relate to your 10-year-old versus your 19-year-old?
Without fail. And every parent out there who's like, I can't believe I'm actually changing things, I'm like, by all means,
Hmm.
if you have more kids than one, and more kid, like, at all, like, if you have 2,
Yeah,
you're going to parent differently, and no matter how
right.
close in age they are, you will parent differently, and
Hmm.
you'll grow into it, and you'll create unique relationships. That said, we you know we got married young, we had kids young, and honestly, I kind of grew up with my son, right? Like, we kind of
Okay.
grew up together in a lot of ways, so there's a lot of things that I learned with him and through trial and
Hmm.
error that we have been able to work through. And I think every oldest child out there, if they're a parent or otherwise, knows that they were the guinea pig, that
Yep.
trial and error worked. But the younger your parents were when they had you as an oldest child, the more, right, like, you were
Yeah.
learning and growing up, developing, um, as your child was. And so that's why it's
Hmm.
so important to really know and become who you purposefully are meant to
Hmm.
be, and in your fulfillment, so that you can pass along good things with kids, and really kind of be the same person with each child, maybe approach them differently based on their
Right.
personalities, but you're the same person, because the version of me is one of the best versions I've ever lived up until now. Um, my son in his developmental years didn't get that version of me, and I don't think
Okay.
every child gets the best version of every parent all the time, but definitely the faster in life we can get to the better versions of ourselves
Hmm.
and be cemented and rooted and grounded, and live with a purpose, beyond our children. Sorry, I love our children, but
Yep.
your children
Me as
your
well.
children are not your purpose, right? Like,
Right.
they have their purpose. They are
Hmm.
part of your purpose. But they are not it. They are not the end all be all. And
Nope.
I probably just
They're
upset a
not.
few parents that way, or sorry.
I have also
Um,
upset that as well.
Right. Okay. So, um, but the sooner we can get to a purpose-driven person, and
Hmm.
give our best selves, then all the kids, no matter how many you have, get the very best version of you, and you get to
Hmm.
just now work with them individually.
I love that. And help them probably to find their purpose. With your
Yes.
oldest, I know your journey to finding your purpose kind of came in bits and pieces
Hmm.
until you got here. So guessing that your oldest has also picked up on bits and pieces of your purpose, but now you're living your purpose. So
Yes.
how do you help your kids find their own purpose so that they don't necessarily have to spend as much time on this journey as we did, right? Because I just also took mine in bits and pieces, but now we're here on this journey. How do we help our kids so they don't have to wait so long to find that purpose?
Great question. Curiosity, right?
Hmm.
Conversation, support. So I grew up with the phrase "when in doubt, don't," um, and and I think that has some very real world application and very safe way of living. That said,
Hmm.
I with my kids, it's a little bit more of like when in doubt, try it out, right?
Okay.
Like
Okay.
let's try the things that make us scared. I'm not going to
Hmm.
force you into something, but let's keep trying various passions and hobbies. And if something's really clicking, how can I just invest in you and invest time, energy,
Hmm.
emotion, again, curiosity, and money where necessary, right? Is it a
Right.
sport? Is it an art? Is it books? Is it just conversation? Is it a mix of all of them? But
Hmm.
essentially, how we help them find their purpose sooner is by choosing to connect with them, by asking questions, by listening to them and being ridiculously curious about why they made decisions they made, why they made
Hmm.
choices they make, why they like what they like. They are still developing, so they may not really understand. And my kids don't really know all the whys behind they do what they do,
Hmm.
but it's working through the question consistently of like, help me understand why do you love that so much?
Hmm.
And as they hear it more and more, it helps them understand themselves better and paint that bigger picture more clearly. Um,
Right.
but knowing why you make decisions is significantly more important than the decision that's made, for the
Right.
most part.
I agree with that. And I like the when in doubt, try it out. Um, because I have talked on this show as well in the very beginning about how fear is kind of your fence line for if you yourself or your house. Fear is that fence line, and it doesn't like you to go past the fence line because you're safe in that fence line. We
Hmm.
know what's predictable, but trying it out is stepping outside that fence line. And sometimes I know as a parent, we've seen my little guy around here.
Yeah.
There are times where I'm like, oh my gosh, don't, because like I'm afraid of what's going to happen if you do
Hmm.
that. But I have to take this step back and go, you're going to fall. I know you're going to fall. I don't want you to fall, but you have to experience why you're falling. And you have to experience that you're going to ride a bike and you're going to fall off. You have to experience that something is going to happen and I can't catch you and I can't save you from all of that. Even though I'm afraid of some of the decisions that could be made in life. I mean, he's only 3, so I've got a lot of time to work this out, but there's things as I look at the world outside going, "Oh my gosh, how do I steer?" Because I'm afraid of those decisions, so how can I not project that fear onto him in what that looks like? So I love that theory of when in doubt, try it out because it could be the target to leading you somewhere else,
Hmm.
but you didn't fail. You've expanded your boundary of what fear is telling you I can protect you from, but you're also not saying I'm projecting this on you because I don't feel like it's safe. But it could
Right.
you could be totally safe there and I don't feel like I would be safe there. So then I don't think you would be safe there type of thing
Hmm. Yeah.
in that. So how do you find yourself stopping that projection because you have a college student in
Hmm.
where it's kind of like, "Oh, please, you're like living on your own and you're doing all of these things and there's a lot out there that you are choosing and you can't come home to me at night and like talk me through this." Like
Sure.
you have to fully live with all of these consequences. So how do
Mhm.
you kind of get past that as letting him go into the world?
It started years ago. Look,
Mhm.
it started years ago. There's not a night that while he was away at school that Dan and I didn't usually either individually or collectively just like, I wonder what he's doing. I wonder what he's up to,
Mhm.
right? Like, I wonder, or one of us would talk to him. He would call one of us on his way to class or text one of us and not both of us. And like, wait, he talked to you? Right? Like there was just so much wanting, and it's the same with all of our kids, right? Like we love connecting with them and we love being a part of their lives. That said, where this really manifested hard for me, and I really had to understand it, was when Hunter, our oldest, and subsequently his sisters have entered middle school, junior high, and where their grades start to count. Growing up, grades were a real sore spot in our house. And there was a very high expectation what was acceptable and what wasn't acceptable. And that was also at midterms. Like we were held accountable to our midterm grades, even though they weren't final and everything could shift and shuffle, in the next 6 weeks. We were held to a very high standard of accountability for our midterm grades. And so as grades became important, right, and critical, I found myself like having to breathe through a midterm report that had a C and a D.
That had letters you didn't want on it.
and just kind of, okay, time out. Like, okay, let's go back in time. And so we worked through, and so this is just an example. We worked through what are we really trying to talk about when we talk about grades? Like, is it the grade or is it the process of getting the grade? Like, what's the conversation that matters right now?
Right.
And so we would get to the point like, okay, great, you're failing this class. Let's talk through what's going on. Help us understand what's causing this grade. And if it was something that was within our child's control, okay, we would almost allow ourselves to be a little more frustrated. Like, okay, so you could have, why didn't we? How do we? And what can happen from here forward, right? If it was out of their control and they had given everything they could to it, or the teacher just hadn't graded the papers yet, or whatever that may be, then great. Like we were able to move on. It became a non-issue because it's not about the grade, it's about that process. And so again, know why you're making the decisions you're making. Let's know why we're getting the grades we're getting. And so the grade example is how I taught myself and retaught myself to be okay with the decisions that my children were making, so long as, and I shouldn't say it this way, so long as, but one of the things that we have to work through is it's their life, their choice. I'm here to help them and guide them. And while they're still under my roof, there are rules and we have to do all that. That's a whole different topic.
That's normal.
Yeah, normal, right? But in the end, if they understand the consequence and they understand what the near-term and long-term consequence, again, going back to grades, are, and how it plays to their goals. If their goals are to get to college with a scholarship, how do grades play into that? And how are you using that to prepare for the next step? And so that's I think how we've promoted that willingness to sit down and sit through and watch them climb the tree, even though we're like, hey, we talked about it. That's a really big tree and you've never done that before, but all right, but you know why, and you've got basic understanding. Okay, here we go. Just a random analogy, I guess, but you know where I'm going. That's how we got there. That's how we did it. Is we used that to breathe through it, ask the questions, understand how we got to where we got to, why it's important to fix or to adjust, and then hear their side and understanding, and if in control or out of control. And so we've applied that throughout that. So by the time our son was in school, we had so much practice with him in understanding his decision-making process and his willingness to share the why behind it, and here's how I'm looking at this, that the trust has been built. We trust that he's going through the same motions with every decision, especially big decisions, and he knows that we're going to support him. So when he gets far, I love that song. I love that song, by the way. So when he needs help, he knows that he can come and ask us for specific help and guidance in that decision, because we're
Right.
not going to tell him what the decision should be. We're just going to talk it through, and it's still
Perfect.
ultimately his decision.
I love that so much, and being able to co- co-create is probably my favorite words to use, because I feel like a parenting relationship is very much co-creating.
Yes.
You're like, okay, this is the choice, and you're still sure that you want to make this choice, and we're going to like go through the terms and conditions a little bit, make sure you understand what those are, and then again reaffirming like that's the choice that you want to make. Okay, then if that's it, how can I support you in this? How can we make this work if it's not necessarily something I'm on board with?
Yeah.
In, like going back to climbing the tree. I'm not on board with you climbing the tree, but okay, you want to climb the tree. So I know that if something happens or if you fall, that's where my support is needed. Like we've talked through that that's really what you're going to do. And you said yes
Yeah.
in that,
Yeah.
which life, I think, is very much a co-creation between anybody in your life, right? Like me and you have co-created a lot of stuff together on the back end. Um,
Yeah.
you've co-created with your significant other, you're co-creating with your kids, other relationships that you're in, and like that's what life is, and that's part of what, tying it all back to gratitude, is that being grateful for everybody in your life and allowing them to co-create with you and helping you push that fence line, helping you grow into your purpose, helping you find your purpose. But that's part of being grateful. So as a last parting words, what would you like to say?
I would say that, specifically parenting is a journey, and that what worked one day might not work tomorrow, and that it's a constant learning, relearning, co-creating. I love that so much.
Mhm.
But that if we're not coming at it from our best self, and best self doesn't mean that, we may have a bad day, whatever, but like that we
Mhm.
don't know who we are, we're not grounded ourselves. How can we expect our kids to? Like, how can
Yeah.
we expect our kids to live a life of purpose and passion if we ourselves are not doing that? So that's the ultimate goal. Help dads find their best self so they can show up for their kids before it's too late. Opportunities to work with you. Find me on Instagram at
Yep.
Greg Larsen, and I've got a link tree. I've got a free 30-minute call that I can
Awesome.
coach you through your biggest challenge, right? Like one challenge, bring it to me, and let's have a 30-minute coaching session. And then we've got a group class that we're going to open up on July 1st. Signups registration actually is July 1st through July 10th. If you want to be a part of that, early bird pricing, like super early bird pricing before we even open registration, is available for anyone who joins or who DMs me between now and July 1st. From
Awesome.
this radio show, I'll give you some really good early bird pricing, about 30% off the group pricing. We have 20 seats, only 20 seats, because we want our cohorts to be super tight and working together. So DM me at Greg Larsen, and we'll have a good conversation and get you signed up.
I love that. Thank you so much, Greg, for your wisdom. You're my first guest, but you're definitely not my last guest, and you will see more of him on our show as well. You are listening to the Mindset Bloomcast with Mallory. I am your host, Mallory McGary. I am the founder and CEO of Beautifully Blooming. You can find me at beautifullyblooming.com or email me questions or feedback at mallory@beautifullyblooming.com. You are listening to the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, radio, TV, and podcast, the #1 internet talk network. Thank you so much, Greg, again for being here, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Mallory. Appreciate everybody.